off camera.
Oh yeah, put it on.
All right, okay. So welcome to our final keynote of BIMS Week 3, Below the Depths. My name is Shantae Lively, and I am your Saturday day lead. I'm a marine and environmental science educator located in Atlanta, Georgia. So on July 12th, Dr. Dawn Wright, or Deep Sea Dawn, made history as the first Black person to descend into Challenger Deep, the deepest known point of the ocean. So we are honored to have Dr. Wright back here again on BIMS TV to provide details on her historic dive and continue the conversation from her last BIMS dive. And I'm just going to read out her bio. So Dr. Dawn Wright is Chief Scientist of the Environmental Systems Research Institute, aka ESRI, a world-leading geographic information system, GIS software, and data science company. Core to ESRI's mission is to inspire and enable people to positively impact their future by connecting them with geoanalytic knowledge needed to make the critical decisions shaping the planet. As chief scientist, Dawn is responsible for strengthening the scientific foundation for ESRI software and services while representing ESRI to the international scientific community. She is also still a professor of geography and oceanography at Oregon State University, where she's been on the faculty since 1995. In the early 1990s, Dawn was the first female of African descent to dive to the ocean floor in the deep submersible Alvin. And then on July 12th, 2022, she became the first person of African descent of any gender to dive to Challenger Deep, the deepest point on Earth, and successfully operate a side scan sonar at full ocean depth. This was accomplished in the deep submersible limiting factor. On April 2021, Dawn was elected to both the National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She holds an individual interdisciplinary PhD in physical geography and marine geology from UC Santa Barbara, a master's in oceanography from Texas A&M, and a bachelor's cum laude in geology from Wheaton College in Illinois. So you need to make sure you also follow her at Twitter on Deep Sea Dawn. So I'm just going to hand the reins over to Dr. Wright so she can deliver a wonderful keynote. And I'm telling you all, save your questions for the end when we have a Q&A moderated by Dr. Tierra Moore.
Thank you so much, Shantae. That was a lovely introduction. I'm so honored to be with you for the end of BIMS Week here. I was just telling Dr. Moore how far BIMS has come, and you're making an incredible impact throughout the world. This is an international impact that you're making, and I'm so proud to be with you today. So as Shantae mentioned, I'm going to give you a presentation about what happened at Challenger Deep earlier this summer. So this is indeed Below the Depths. And this is actually part 2 of an earlier BIMS TV slot that we had earlier this year, where I talked about what was ahead, what was to come with this dive. And this is a nice screenshot of that wonderful session. I'm showing my dive suit there with the BIMS keychain that did go to the bottom of the world, to Challenger Deep. I wanted to, for those of you who haven't had a chance to hear the background behind this and how this all came to be, I just wanted to spend a few minutes just giving you some of that background very, very quickly, because I know our time is limited. But this is the pressure drop, the big ship that you see. That's the pressure drop in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with its 2 support boats behind it. At this point, when this picture was taken with a drone, the limiting factor had already submerged. The pressure drop is the primary vessel of an organization that's known as Caladan Oceanic. And I'm wearing my Caladan Oceanic expedition shirt for the BIMS ball, since it's a black shirt. And this organization is dedicated to the advancement of undersea technology, and it supports expeditions to increase the understanding of the oceans. The interesting thing about Caladan is that it's privately funded, so it's not unlike Elon Musk's SpaceX or Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic. It's probably closest to the Wendy and Eric Schmid of Google fame, Schmid Ocean Institute. These are all organizations that are funded by wealthy, environmentally minded people who are trying to do their part to advance science and engineering. So they're doing a lot of good. The pressure drop, the ship, its main purpose is to deploy this amazing submersible, the limiting factor. And it's one of only 2 commercially certified vehicles for unlimited depth and repeated visitation of any point in the ocean at any depth at any time of the year. The other submersible is a Chinese submersible that's called the Fenduja, but the limiting factor is American. It was designed and was built by Triton Submarines. It's also known as the Triton 36,000/2 because it can dive to a maximum of 36,000 feet while carrying 2 people. And it also has one of the most, along with the pressure drop, it can do quite a bit of mapping. So this is what we were in for 10 and a half hours earlier this summer. To be at sea was a wonderful experience because of the diversity of the people on board the ship. Among the 43 people who were on board, these are the flags representing where they were from. So 14 flags for 43 people. You see one South African was among us. We also had, out of the 43 people, 7 of us were women. So things are continuing to move forward in terms of diversity on the ocean and in ocean science, which is, of course, what we strive to achieve with BIMS. Now, one of the things that's really important to know about Caladan Oceanic is their 5 Deeps expedition. You may have heard of this in the news, you may not have. Unfortunately, most people have not heard about what happened here, but between 2018 and 2019, Caladan Oceanic used the pressure drop and the limiting factor to complete what they call the 5 Deeps expedition, which was their quest to reach the 5 deepest points in all the major ocean basins. So you see those points here: Malloy Deep in the Arctic, the Java Trench, point 2 in the Indian Ocean, point 3 is the South Sandwich Trench in the Southern Ocean, point 4 is the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic, and of course, point 5 on the map is the deepest of them all, Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the Pacific. And I'm showing this in a special Spielhaus projected coordinate system, which shows all of the world's oceans as one interconnected ocean. One ocean, one people, one world, one human race. Let's get it together, people. And we're getting it together in the cartographic realm as well. Now, not only had the 5 Deeps not been accomplished before, but the oceanographic community was unsure as to what the actual depths were in many of these regions. So Caladan really made a contribution there in terms of bathymetric mapping of these areas, and of course the visitation of all these areas by Victor Vescovo in the limiting factor. And Victor Vescovo is the founder, he's the funder, he's the driving force of all of this. He's a private equity investor, but he's also an amazing explorer. He's been to the 7 highest points on the Earth's terrestrial surface. Of course, he's been to all of the deepest points in the ocean. He recently went to space. He is just an amazing individual. And he's also become one of my good friends. He's an amazing person and really, really a lot of fun. And one of the things that people also don't understand about going to these deep places in the limiting factor is that there are 3 types of people that Victor now tends to take with him, or after completing the 5 Deeps, he wanted to keep going by visiting new unexplored places and also revisiting Challenger Deep to set more records and to do more science. So he decided to take 3 types of passengers along with him. One type are the pleasure explorers who've paid as much as $750,000 to get a dive in the limiting factor. This has helped to keep that operation going. There have been special guests to honor or inspire or set records, such as Kathy Sullivan, the first American woman to walk in space, the former administrator of NOAA. And when Victor took her down to Challenger Deep, she became the first woman to go to Challenger Deep, and also the world's most vertical person, having been to the heights of space and to the depths of the ocean. Kathy Sullivan also works very closely with us at Esri. So that's how I came to be asked to participate, because the 3rd type of participant is a scientific guest who can not only set a record, but also serve as a mission specialist and do something specific in the submersible beyond just taking the dive and getting down to that point and looking around. You actually get to operate a piece of equipment or do an experiment. And an example is Professor Yifu Tuan of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. He went down last year as the first person of Asian descent, the first Asian American, the first Taiwanese person to go to Challenger Deep. Victor wanted to make sure that he was able to take that dive, but he also conducted an acoustic experiment with a special piece of equipment within Challenger Deep. And hence that's similar to my situation, because I was asked, because of our relationship with Kathy Sullivan, Victor's relationship with Esri had grown. He had found out about my background and asked me to take the dive with him as the first person of African descent, but also to test this prototype side scan sonar mapping instrument, which is perfect for us at Esri, given our mapping emphasis and expertise. So that's how I came to join this wonderful crew. And really had a good time on this cruise. We were out for about 2.5 weeks. This is my bunk with my Snoopy, who went to Challenger Deep as well. This is a picture of me in the limiting factor the day before my dive, practicing how to get in and out safely of the submersible. We also had a CBS News crew out there with us, and they kept saying, "We like your shirt. We really like your shirt." So this shirt was a favorite. It was very comfortable, but it also had an important message: science, because making stuff up is not okay. Had a lot of fun with that. Here's my my preparation for the dive. I've got the dive suit on, and I'm standing in the picture on the right. I'm standing with Nicole Yamase. She's the first Pacific Islander to go to Challenger Deep. And she's a newly minted PhD from the University of Hawaii. And she came out with us again to support us. And it was just fantastic to be with her and to be inspired by her. She's of Micronesian descent. And I'm almost ready to go. I've got the dive suit on. And yes, I had the BIMS keychain with me all the way. So that's a close up to show you that. And I'm climbing on board the submersible here in this shot. And again, you can see the BIMS keychain is going to go down. You all were represented proudly. And here I am taking the final steps to get into the submersible and waving goodbye before we embark on our 10.5-hour dive, and getting into the submersible there. And we also had the famous styrofoam cups. Many of you know about this practice, maybe not all of you do. When you go deep into the ocean and you're going to be in a place where hydrostatic pressure is really significant, and we were going to be at 16,000 pounds per square inch hydrostatic pressure. And I'm going to take this off camera for a second so that you can actually see me. One of the things that's really fun is to shrink a styrofoam cup. You decorate the cup, and then you send it down with your vehicle or with the submersible. And this particular cup shrank to this size in Challenger Deep. It's decorated for me by someone on the ship. Great Christmas gifts. So we had a whole bunch of those that we sent down on each dive. Let me go back to sharing my screen. And it's wonderful that you all are working with North Star GIS, which is the great organization for people of African descent who are working in the geospatial industry and working with geographic information systems. And I understand you have another BIMS story map that is being created. Here is a story map that was created about the dive itself. So from start to finish, from soup to nuts, this story map tells the story of those 10.5 hours. So I'm putting this on the screen so that you can go and enjoy that later. It's at esriurl.com/challenge accepted. One of the things that is in the story map is this nice reference map to show you where Challenger Deep is in relationship to other places in the Western Pacific Ocean. And our port of call was Guam. So we all flew to Guam and then boarded the ship there. And it was about a 200-mile transit to get to Challenger Deep. This is also another thing that you can access from the story map is this wonderful fishbowl diorama map version of Challenger Deep, showing the convergence of the two tectonic plates that makes this place so deep, and also the fact that there are actually 3 depressions within Challenger Deep, the eastern, central, and western pools. And our dive actually went to the western pool. And another thing that you can get in the story map is a wonderful series of 3D web scenes that take you on the journey with us in terms of 3 dimensions, all the way down to the bottom. And once we got to the bottom,
obviously something.
What is that?
I don't know. We're gonna find out real
Wow,
short.
it looks like a lightsaber.
It's a bottle. It's a freaking
Isn't
bottle.
that something?
It's a bottle.
As soon as we get here.
Look, it's a freaking bottle.
Wow.
that was the news bit from our dive that went viral around the world. How the very first thing that we saw going to a place that no other humans had ever descended to was a beer bottle. So it's another indication of how much impact we have on this planet, where it can be very negative, and how we must do better and not pollute on our planet. But we saw many other amazing things. My favorite as a geologist was these views of these massive talus piles of boulders, probably evidence of the tectonic erosion going on at this place where the Pacific plate is diving underneath the Philippine Sea plate. These were, I called these places Flintstone's Quarry, and there were miles of these huge blocks. You can also see some of the alteration on the rocks from fluids, probably hydrothermal fluids coming up to the surface through small cracks underneath these talus piles. We also, there is life at this deepest, most bone crushing in terms of hydrostatic pressure, completely dark part of our planet. The species that we saw the most were the Galaanthemum tubed anemones. And we did also see some tiny amphipods called Eurythenes, but this picture was taken at 10,630 meters depth from the forward camera of the limiting factor. This is another part of the 3D web scene, which shows the approximate track of our dive. And so it's showing you here that we landed and then moved across the flatter part of the western pool and then made our way up the southern wall of Challenger Deep. And along that wall, we also tested our prototype side scan sonar vehicle, or side scan sonar instrument. The instrument are the 2 rectangular objects that you see attached here to the underside of the starboard part of the submersible. This really was our primary mission, was to test this instrument and to see if it could function well beyond the standard commercial limitation of 6,000 meters. These things usually implode at 6,000 meters because of the pressure, but a company called Deep Ocean Search customized this instrument to see if it could actually operate successfully at 10,919 meters, which was our maximum depth. And sure enough, it did. So from a mission standpoint, having this instrument operate successfully was a huge success. And normally what this instrument returns is a backscatter image or an acoustic image that can help to discern objects or structures on the seafloor, such as this image of a special type of sonar similar to the one that we used that is showing a shipwreck. So that image there is the wreck of the Samuel B. Roberts that was discovered just a month before we went to Challenger Deep. And here I am in the submersible with Snoopy looking on, and I'm operating the instrument from my laptop there. We are getting data. We got live streamed from the instrument to us in the submersible acoustic imagery of that southern part, the southern wall of the Challenger Deep. So that for us was a huge success, and it will inform the evolution of instruments, portable instruments like this going forward. So we at Esri are working now with Deep Ocean Search to see if we can develop a better workflow for getting georeferenced data of this type from these instruments. Another type of instrument that we had with us was a lander. And here you're seeing a nice 3D map of where we were in Challenger Deep, and the CLASP 3 and CLASP 4 indications there are signals that we received from a lander, the lander that was named CLASP, that went with us into the Western Pool, and we used that lander to help us navigate. And then there is, to the left there, you see higher up on the wall of the trench is Flare. And Flare was a lander as well. Both of those landers gave us amazing videography of life. And here you see the deployment of CLASP. CLASP and Flare, they both, looks like my video is hung up there. They both have that long arm that's extending from them that's baited with fish to attract creatures at the bottom so that they can then be captured in the video cameras of the lander. And the lander also has sampling boxes and water samplers so that we can bring back actual biological and chemical samples as well. So this is what Flare saw at 7,396 meters depth. You're looking at the big white fish or snailfish. They're decapods. There's some little fellow who's just run right into the video camera. I hope you saw him, poor little thing. This is what he actually looks like. This is a giant amphipod. This is a Erythrines amphipod. And these creatures live in complete darkness. The two big red blobs are, we think, his eyes, and he's got a significant olfactory sensory pod there as well. These are the most amazing creatures. Let's see if we can get the video to work a little better here. I guess my machine is a little tired. Here we go. So we've got snailfish, decapods, a big bright red decapod is coming. He'll come back into the frame. This is just a whole amazing world where these creatures are living in complete darkness, but they were attracted to our lander because of the jack mackerel bait that is there extending from the arm, the metal arm of the lander, which brings them in to feast on that food, and then we can capture this amazing video footage of them. And some of them actually crawl into the boxes and are taken back up to the surface. We saw also this amazing, beautiful Pectus profundicola is the jellyfish species that we think that we're seeing here. And this is again at 7,396 meters depth. This is the deepest that fish and these larger species are known to exist. I also had the wonderful opportunity to make a dedication of my dive. And so there we do have this captured on video, and I have the text captured as a Word document that I would be very happy to share with you. But I dedicated this dive to 7 groups, 7 Black people who have inspired me, including, of course, my mother. And this also went in concert with the Black and Marine Science keychain that I was wearing on my dive suit. So it was wonderful to be part of this very significant moment. This is the end of the 3D web scene, which when you experience that web scene, which is interactive, it takes you through the entirety of the dive all the way back up to the surface. And here's a photograph of me coming out of the submersible, taking off or actually putting on a life jacket because they give that to us in the unlikely event that we slip and fall off the submersible. And the way that it's deployed, it's swung out there over the water. So if you fall off the submersible while trying to get in or trying to get out, you're going to land in the water. So you need the life jacket there. We had a big celebration at the end, which was fantastic for me to be a part of because they made the special limiting factor cake for Victor because that was his 15th dive to Challenger Deep. And it's likely going to be the last dive that he or Caladan Oceanic makes in a very long time because he has now sold this operation to Inkfish Expeditions, and Inkfish Expeditions is going to be taking a different emphasis and going to different parts of the ocean. So that cake was fantastic. It was wonderful. There was also real champagne. There was Lego building by me. The picture on the right is me with my roommate on board the ship, Kate Wawatai. She was the only woman on the submersible support team. Victor is peeking in behind us. Kate Wawatai is a record breaker in her own right. She is a Maori, and she is the first and only female Maori certified submersible pilot. And my hope for her is that one day she'll be able to pilot the limiting factor into the Kermadec Trench, which is a sacred place for the Maori people. But she was a wonderful roommate. After my dive, we had 2 other dives that were covered by CBS News, and it was fun to help the CBS News cameraman with his drone. So I went from being a submersible mission specialist to a drone catcher because he didn't want to land his drone on a wet and rolling deck. So that was my new job. And here we are at the end of the expedition. We're heading into port. This picture was taken by a drone, and it was just a fantastic experience. I want to show you a bit of the CBS News coverage of this dive. And I want you to, I'm just going to focus on the end part of this because I thought we might discuss actually what Gail King of CBS News had to say. So let me move over to that.
That smile on Dawn Wright's face, however, was all for her mom, who always encouraged her to chase her lofty dreams, even if they lay at the bottom of the world.
What do you think your mom would think?
I think my mom would be extremely relieved.
Somewhere high over the deepest spot on Earth, I'm Lee Cowan for CBS Mornings.
Bravo to TC Dawn.
Wow.
She's different than most black women I know because we don't like to get our hair wet.
That's
much
a fact.
time. So bravo to you and the work that she's doing.
Gail, think about getting her hair wet. This is the real Gail. I thought
You know that's true now.
It's true.
You have a wife.
I be sitting on the side of the pool. Yeah, this is the real Gail. When you ask
Okay, so that is actually a point of discussion that I'd like to have with our BIMS group, because to me, in my mind, that was wonderful that Gail King mentioned that, but it was also a missed opportunity. Because as we in BIMS know, Black women, we get our hair wet. We are in the ocean all the time. This is important work. This is work that Black people can and should do. We need more of us. Part of my dive was to encourage that, not to be called out as someone who is unusual or you go girl, you do that. But Black people don't do this sort of thing. So that's what I wanted to bring out. But I was so very happy and honored to have been involved in this. And I'm again so very honored to have been invited by BIMS to share this with you, because you are my family. And so that's what happened. And I'm happy now to have questions or discussion. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Dr. Dawn Wright. You are always just, it's so good to just listen to you and just see what it is that you're saying and then the experiences that you have. So yeah, let's jump right into it. It's time for a Q&A. So y'all know how it goes down here at BIMS. Ask what you want. This is your moment. If you are watching live on YouTube, just put it in the chat and we will get it here at BIMS and then we will answer them. Of course, I have a lot of questions. As you were talking, I was like, okay, hold on. let me write this down. But I think I want to start exactly where you left us, because you're right. So many times. So many times I have introduced myself, as a marine scientist. People say things like, oh, you can swim, or, oh, you get your hair wet. And it's like,
really? Yeah.
like, what is wrong with y'all? What is wrong with y'all? So I'm disappointed in Gail. Gail, if you can hear me, this is the opportunity to get BIMS back on your show to talk about this. So I guess, how was that moment for you? And why is there that perception of Black women that we just don't get our hair wet?
Well, this is part of why we're doing what we're doing, is to help our own people as well. Now, I've spent my whole life, I'm old, I'm in my 60s. So I started in marine science in the 1980s, and there were no Black people. My idol was Mae Jemison. Mae Jemison went into space. And so I used the excitement of her accomplishment and really the Apollo 11 astronauts who were white men, but that encouraged me to go into marine science, to go the opposite direction. But at the same time, there have been so many opportunities to help educate our own people that this is open to you. And you are needed. We need you. We need your perspectives. We need you to step out and to participate and to look into this area of research, into these careers. Shantae being an educator, that is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know for my family is from Baltimore. Baltimore is a port city, but there's no one in my family who was into swimming or into sailing or into any part of the ocean, because my family was in East Baltimore, and you just didn't do those things. My mother moved me and my father. We went to Hawaii, and so for me, it became a lot easier because I grew up in Hawaii and surrounded by the ocean. And it was like, what is the problem here? This is what you do. And for many of us who are Black in marine science, we're from the Caribbean, or we're from the Western Pacific. We're from coastal areas in Africa, South Africa. But at the same time, there is this constant refrain that this is open to us. This is something that if you are led to do this, if you want to do this, look at the example of, look at BIMS, look at all of these beautiful examples, and follow through and try it out, because it's something that we have got to, and by we, I mean the Black community, we have got to support each other on this. We can't afford to hold any of our community members back. We need everybody in all going in all directions, doing all things. So let's not hold our brothers and sisters back.
Exactly. And as we know, y'all, hair dries. Okay, so we can get it wet, but it will dry back. But something that you just mentioned was, educating our own communities. But I think, we would be remiss to say that this field doesn't have as much Black people as we would like. Mm-hmm. And we are still seeing a lot of firsts. So as you're going down the water column, you're going to the Challenger Deep, you get there, you look around, you take your first breath, and you are the first Black person that's ever been there. What does that feel like? And what does that mean, I guess, for Black communities at large?
Well, the first thing is for us to do our jobs well and to represent Black excellence and to be the best that we can be, being a scientist or being an educator or being a resource manager, to do our job well. So for me, the dedication that I made to the Black community and to Black people and organizations who have inspired me, that did not come until the end of the dive. So we had done about 7 or 8 hours of hard work down there, making observations, running the side scan sonar instrument. And then as we were ready to ascend, all of that good work was done. I had pulled my weight. I had done what I was supposed to do. I contributed, which is what we always, that's also a part of it, because many of us are judged or viewed. And this was not the case for me on this expedition. It was a wonderful experience. We were all treated with respect and honor. It was fantastic. But I'm just talking about in general, in our careers, and especially in oceanography, if you've got darker skin, if you're a woman, if you're both of those, if you're gay, if you're trans, if you're any of these others, you are looked at with a microscope to see, can you measure up? Do you belong? Because the first misstep is like, see what I mean? It's sort of, in fact, I'm going to call on the Will Smith thing, Will Smith and Chris Rock. That was Black on Black violence. And a lot of people in Hollywood and elsewhere are saying, see, that they can't even get along with each other. And they want to be accepted into Hollywood equal with others. So my point being is, for me on that dive, that was significant. And then when it hit me again, what the significance was of being a first, it was very emotional. It filled me with pride, and the press that I've received afterwards has been mostly good. Some of it has been hurtful, but by far, I've been hearing from teachers. In fact, I'm due to speak to a school in Houston with all Black students. I spoke to a Black National Society of Black Engineers Science Club of little Black kids in Albuquerque, New Mexico, landlocked in New Mexico, but they were so interested and wanted to hear about this and to interact with me. In fact, a little 11-year-old boy, or maybe he's 12, he wrote me an email and said, please come to visit us in Albuquerque. We want to talk to you. I said, oh, well, I can't, I won't be able to come, but let's Zoom. And so we Zoomed. Those children were wonderful. Their questions were amazing. And the group of children there ranged from, I think, 4th or 5th graders all the way through high school, and they have their dreams. They are young engineers, young designers, young scientists, and boy, it just gave me hope. But I wouldn't have known anything about them. I wouldn't have had a chance to interact with them at all had it not been for this dive. So it is wonderful that when any of us do significant things like this, it opens up more avenues for us to reach these places that we weren't able to reach, which is exactly what BIMS is doing. So it's all part of it. We're all doing this.
Yeah. No, I think that is great. Like seeing the youth inspired. Like we had a whole day this week on Thursday dedicated to the youth. We had our youngest BIMS member actually give the keynote for that day, and it was awesome. I was like, yo, she need to start going to some of these conferences.
Yeah.
Because her keynote was better. So I think that is really what is needed, because I think you and I both know, like, we didn't see that growing up. Like I didn't know, anybody's giving me this type of opportunity to welcome me, to embrace me, to look like me, But I think something you mentioned is that, what we're doing is that we are excellent in the work that we do anyway. It's like for us to be there, there's this misconception like, oh, well, they picked her because she Black. They had to let a Black person go. But you had to be qualified first. Like you had to be doing excellent work. And so I wrote this down. Something you mentioned was the side scan sonar mapping. So tell the streets, what is that? Tell the streets what is that, and how we use that, and why is that important, and why that was why, got you that seat, your seat in this place, not because, oh, you're Black, but like you do this really innovative, cool work.
Well, side scan and the picture that I showed had the two pieces that were at an angle. And that's where the side scan comes from. Each one of those transducers is sending out acoustics. And for those of us who work in ocean science, sound or acoustics is everything, because acoustics travel so well underwater. And the only way that we can really see the ocean, and certainly to see the bottom in detail, is by using sound waves. And so a side scan sonar instrument is an instrument that takes advantage of the strength of the sound as it's returning. There are many instruments that can that use the travel time of the sound. So as the sound goes to the bottom and comes back, that travel time is converted to a depth. And that's where we get the contour maps of the ocean floor, the bathymetric maps. The bathymetric maps that become the basis for the habitat mapping that so many of our members, our BIMS people, excellent scientists use in studying corals. Well, this particular instrument could not deal with the travel time. It dealt with the strength of the return. And the strength of the return gives places that are bright from a strong return and places that are darker from a muted return. And that when you put all of those signals together, that gives you a picture, really an acoustic photograph of the seafloor. And that's why these types of instruments are so good at finding shipwrecks, because they will bring out bright places in their records. And it turns out that those bright reflections are the sound waves bouncing off of metal, bouncing off of big pieces of metal, which are shipwrecks. The problem with these instruments is that if you want to use them in the deepest parts of the ocean, the design, the electronics, the way these instruments are structured, there are too many void spaces in the instrument, so that when they are subjected to the crushing pressures below 6,000 meters, they just implode. And that is also true for whole submersibles. The Alvin submersible that I was in only just recently got certified to 6,500 meters. They had to change the electronics. They had to change the structure of the submersible so that it could safely go to that depth. Before that, it wasn't able to go to that depth, or it would have imploded. So we were working with an experimental instrument that did not implode. It worked perfectly all the way down to the full extent of the ocean. So that's going to, we hope, help with the evolution of the deepest of these kinds of instruments for mapping the seafloor. And we map the seafloor for all kinds of reasons, for habitat, we are even having this YouTube live video live streaming because of the seafloor, because of submarine cables that are sending these signals around the world. And in order to know the best places to lay those cables, we need the maps of the seafloor. Boy, we could go on and on for another 40 minutes about that. Don't get me started on that, but that's
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
I see you got really excited about those maps.
Yeah. And I've been doing those maps since the early 90s. So that's been my career, my contribution. So those maps are now, that part of oceanography is now well known.
Right. I have a question about that. I do want to talk to YouTube for a second. I didn't forget about y'all. If you have any questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. I will get to them. So yeah, ask any questions about the dive, about Dr. Wright, just as a person, as the scientist. All right. So you talked about the maps. And I actually had the opportunity to partner with Google Doodle to highlight Marie Tharp. So I guess, how far have we come since Marie first, drew that first map to where we are now, where we have this side scan sonar? What would Marie say to you today if you think she can meet you? And what would you say to her?
Oh my gosh, Marie, and first I was so overjoyed by that Google Doodle. And when I heard the video, I said, that's Tiara, that is Curly Scientist. That I know that voice. This is awesome. Along with the other two young ladies who did the narration, that was beautifully done. And Marie Tharp, actually, if I had the chance to even meet her, in fact, I have a Marie Tharp sticker here on my computer that I can't show you because I've got it stuck to my computer. At any rate, I don't know what I would say to her or what she would say to me, except that, I know I would say to Marie, thank you, because she, and if you have a chance to, I think that Google Doodle tells her story so well. As a scientist in the 40s and into the 50s. And one of the things that the scientists around her accused her of was just girl talk. So that's become a theme now. Oh, well, you're a woman, not just a woman, you're a girl, and you're just talking, and you're not making sense. You're not talking good science. And she proved them all wrong. She was not even allowed to go to sea. Women were not allowed really to be at sea in the 1950s. There were great breakthroughs in the 1960s, and Marie did actually finally get to go to sea, and she was at sea for an Alvin cruise, and Bruce Hazen, her mapping partner, her mapping leader, was in the Alvin submersible. In fact, the legend is that he got stuck in Alvin, and they had a hard time taking him from the submersible. In fact, he passed away, I think, at sea for an Alvin cruise, but that's a different story. But she persisted. She did excellent science. It started again with excellence. She was right. She had developed a good workflow. She had the data to back it up. She had the wisdom to also work with an artist to bring that map into the beauty of that map is what captivates not only oceanographers, but everyone. But she was right, and she was doing good, sound science. So that's what it starts with, being excellent at what you do. And then if you can persist and keep going with that, you will break through these barriers.
Exactly. When I was working on the story, I was like, yo, it's always a hater. Like, bro,
yeah.
Like, why? Why? And so I think what that is like, she was right. She was excellent. She knew what she saw. And she's like, no, I'm not going to let you shut me down. And I think, we know as women, and specifically as Black women, we have to do that so often that it kind of can sometimes take away from the work that we're trying to do because we have to qualify. So I guess just in your experience, how have you combated that? Like, how have you been like, hey, I'm Deep Sea Dawn. I'm not qualifying nothing. How do you get to that point in your career?
Well, it's I've always been the kind of person to just keep your head down and do your work, and do your work the best way that you know how. and just keep pushing forward. Sometimes though, you can go overboard a little bit to prove a point. I started off as an athlete, and my father was a great basketball player, and I picked up on a lot of that and was involved in athletics and learned and got a lot of strength through athletics. And I'll connect the dots really quickly, because at Oregon State, when I was first brought onto the faculty, there were some, I wouldn't call them haters, but they were detractors. They were non-believers. They thought that I was an affirmative action hire from the standpoint of a token. Oh, okay, that's why you're here. All right. I don't think you'll make any contribution, but you're here. All right. So to me, that was like someone on the basketball court daring me to drive the lane and dunk. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna come at the basket. I'm gonna come at you, and I'm gonna dunk on you. So so I worked so hard that when they did my third year review, just to see if you're all right on the road to tenure, and you get tenure for 6 years, they said, the external reviews say that your record is so good that we're going to put you up for tenure now. And so I actually got tenure after 4 years. And I never heard anything more from those detractors in my department. They were silent.
Period.
Period. That was the end of that.
Excellence. And there it is. And there we have it.
But having said that, you don't want to have to go through that. I almost killed myself. And there are trade-offs. We are all making trade-offs. Some of us are sacrificing our families, our personal health. We're still learning about that. We're still learning how to balance, the work-life balance, the trauma that so many of us are going through, and how to deal with that trauma. And BIMS has had so many good sessions on that. We've got to keep going and keep protecting ourselves and keeping ourselves stronger, because as my mother told me, you're not going to do anyone any good if you're in the hospital with exhaustion illness or any of these things. You're not going to be able to do all of this and to contribute the way that you are needed. So you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to find a way to balance everything.
I completely agree. Like, that's why you're right. We've tried to implement BIMS cares, having therapy, having yoga sessions, having time where we can just come and talk, because it's a lot. And, you're carrying that weight when you think you have to work so much harder, and you're like burning out, and like, oh. But hopefully we do see that we have, that sense of a little bit of relief, but hopefully it'll just get better overall. Yeah. Maybe on that same note, we have a fun question from the audience. Is Snoopy your favorite character, and have they gone on other dives with you?
Snoopy is a favorite from my childhood. So I've always had a Snoopy. In fact, here is a piece of styrofoam that was shrunk on an Alvin dive to only 2,600 meters.
That's so cute.
And this was a larger piece of styrofoam packing material that shrunk down to this size. Mm-hmm. But I'm also a huge fan of SpongeBob. So a lot of people send me SpongeBob things. And then of course there are the Legos. Yeah. And there is the Deep Sea Dawn minifig that is famous now.
Yes, I forgot about we need to get some of those over here at BIM.
And the Legos back here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that. So yeah. I remember when I asked you before you went on your dive, I think I asked you, were you scared? Did you think you were going to be scared? So now you have to tell me, was there a moment when you were scared, like, oh Lord, what did I get myself into?
No, I was not scared at all. And I'd been on several other dives. The only difference with this dive was that it was longer, and we were going all the way down. So instead of I was used to a 2-hour descent. This one was 4 hours, it was a lot colder, a little bit more uncomfortable because we were on the bottom for so long. But the lesson there is that for all of us, with your scuba equipment, with anything that you're working with in the ocean, you have to put your faith in that technology, in that equipment, and no fear. In fact, even in submersible diving, and others in the audience who have had that experience, you know that if you do have trouble with claustrophobia, or maybe struggling with epilepsy, or any of those types of conditions, for your safety, they won't allow you to dive, because you can't panic. You can't flail around in that tight space, because you might hit a switch that could be make things very difficult, and put you at even more risk. So there was no fear. And you also put yourself in the hands of the pilot, just as if you take a flight on an airplane, your life is in the hands of the pilot and the co-pilot. And it was the same for me. My life was in Victor Vescovo's hands, and he's absolutely stellar. He has flown small planes, helicopters. He had, and this was his 15th dive to Challenger Deep. So among all the divers, I was the one who was probably the safest, because they had all that experience behind them, and everything worked like clockwork.
Right. Well, we have about a minute or so left, and we do have another event, so I'll be brief. I guess the last thing is, final words. And I guess, what do you have to say to the second Black person that's going to go to the Challenger Deep that doesn't even know it yet?
Oh, I would say, and go for it. Enjoy it. Enjoy being excellent in your field. And there are all kinds of firsts. First is a good number, but second, third, we need to get to the point where we don't have to talk about firsts anymore, or seconds, or thirds, but to that second person, and to those who are still out there making fantastic records and firsts. Like my friend Dejana Figueroa, she was the deepest Black person prior, because she'd been to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. She is still doing amazing work and firsts in so many other ways here in Southern California. So it's all good. It's all needed, and bring out that Black joy in doing it all.
Yes. All righty, y'all. Well, that is our time. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to continue seeing the amazing work of Dr. Wright, please follow her at Deep Sea Dawn. Yes, Deep Sea Dawn on all social media platforms. For us, make sure to continue to follow the Black and Marine Science Week events. Up next, we have our Liddy Hour. It's going to be a mixology class that is getting us prepared to go right into the BIMS ball. So you're going to make a couple of drinks, little BIMS inspired drinks, and then we're going to roll into the BIMS ball, and it's going to be amazing. We have awesome giveaways. I'm going to be giving a little update about BIMS, making some huge announcements. So be sure to join us right at 1:30 for the Liddy Hour, 2:30 for the BIMS ball, and that's